Hi, everybody. I'm Roy Firestone. Welcome to my show for Facebook and YouTube. You might remember the first line of this iconic song. Hello, darkness, my old friend. I've come to talk to you again. Hello, darkness, my old friend. This is a story told to me by Richard Graham. Everybody knows that iconic Simon and Garfunkel song, but do you know the amazing story behind the first line of The Sounds of Silence? Well, it really began 62 years ago when Art Garfunkel, Jewish kid from Queens, enrolled in Columbia University. And during freshman orientation, Art met a student from Buffalo named Sandy Greenberg. They immediately bonded over their shared passion for literature and music. Art and Sandy became roommates, became best friends. With the idealism of youth, they promised to be there for each other no matter what. Well, soon after starting college, Sandy was struck by tragedy. His vision became blurry, and although doctors diagnosed it as temporary conjunctivitis, the problem grew worse. Finally, after seeing a specialist, Sandy received the devastating news that severe glaucoma was destroying his optic nerves. The young man with such a bright future would soon be completely blind. Well, Sandy was devastated. He fell into a deep depression. He gave up his dream of becoming a lawyer, moved back to Buffalo, where he worried about being a burden to his financially struggling family. Consumed with shame and fear, Sandy cut off all contact with friends, refusing to answer letters or return phone calls. Then suddenly, to Sandy's shock, his buddy Art showed up one day at the front door. He wasn't going to allow his best friend to give up on life, so he bought a ticket. He flew up to Buffalo unannounced. Art Garfunkel convinced Sandy to give college another go and promised that he would be right by his side to make sure he didn't fall, literally or figuratively. Art kept his promise. He faithfully escorted Sandy around campus, effectively serving as his eyes. It was important to Art that even though Sandy had been plunged into a world of darkness, he should never feel alone. Art actually started calling himself Darkness to demonstrate his empathy with his friends. He'd say things like, "Darkness is going to read to you now." Art organized his life around helping Sandy. One day, Art was guiding Sandy through a crowded Grand Central Station when he suddenly said he had to go, and he left his friend alone and petrified. Sandy stumbled, and he bumped into people, and he fell. He cut a gash in his shin. After a couple of hellish hours, Sandy finally got on the right subway train, and after exiting the station at 116th Street, Sandy bumped into someone who quickly apologized, and Sandy immediately recognized it was his friend Art and that voice. It turned out his trusty friend had allowed him the whole way home, making sure he was safe, giving him the priceless gift of independence. Sandy would later say, "That moment was the spark that caused me to live a completely different life, without fear, without doubt. And for that, I am tremendously grateful to my friend." Well, Sandy Greenberg graduated from Columbia and then earned graduate degrees from Harvard and Oxford. He married his high school sweetheart. He became an extremely successful entrepreneur and philanthropist. And while at Oxford, Sandy got a call one day, and it was Art. This time, Art was the one who needed help. He formed a folk rock duo with his high school pal, Paul Simon, and they desperately needed $400 to record their first album. Sandy and his wife, Sue, had literally just $404 in their bank account, but without hesitation, Sandy gave his old friend what he needed. Art and Paul's first album was not a success, but one of the songs was The Sounds of Silence. It became a #1 hit a year later. The opening line, "Hello, darkness, my old friend," echoed the way Sandy always greeted Art. Simon and Garfunkel went on to become one of the most beloved musical acts in history. The two Columbia graduates, each of whom has added so much to the world in his own way, are still best friends. Art Garfunkel once said that when he became friends with Sandy, quote, "My real life emerged. I became a better guy in my own eyes. I began to see who I was, somebody who gives to a friend." And Sandy describes himself as the luckiest man in the world. Sandy wrote a book called Hello, Darkness, and Art wrote one too. Last year, Sandy Greenberg donated $3 million to help find a cure for blindness. Sandy and Art, they're forever linked in friendship, and you might say they are for each other, maybe a lyric from another song. They are each other's bridge over troubled water. That's our show for this week. We'll see you next week.